Hey, this is Shane. Today we're going to be talking about Stephen King's It. Now, the last time that we talked about a book, the book that we were talking about was Stephen King and Owen King's Sleeping Beauties, a book I didn't so much care about. But today's book is a book I do like. I like it a lot. And there are multiple reasons why I like it. From this point forward, there's spoilers. So with that being said, what are some of the reasons why I like Stephen King's It? There are multiple reasons. One, to reference his book about on writing. He was true to his characters. Those characters were true to the dialogue and the area of which they were from. Geographically speaking, yes, it is a made-up place that he created. However, with that being said, said dialect and characters' actions are all true to whom they are and what they would be doing inside the story, which is great. Now, what are some of the things that I really did enjoy about the book beyond the characters being absolutely true to themselves, but also being true to the story? Well, we've got Big Bill, we've got Ben, we've got Bev, we've got Mike, we've got Beep Beep Richard, we've got a couple of others. Those are the main characters in my mind. Some people would disagree. Some people will say that the main baddie in the book, it itself, the character of Pennywise, or the it that takes on the persona of Pennywise, would actually be the main character of the book. The main character of the book is fear. At least that's the way I see it. And of course, I'm open to discussion. I would like to have discussion. So feel free to leave some comments. If you think I'm wrong, tell me why. I would love to hear your opinion on the matter. But the first thing to know is after all the characters leave and they move on and they get outside of this wonderful little town, there's this thing that happens to them. One, they forget. Two, they become remarkably successful in anything that they do. So Bill, what does Bill do? Bill, of course, becomes the writer. Bev becomes a fashion designer. Beep Beep Richie, which is a radio phenomenon. And one of the reasons why I like the whole Beep Beep Richie, it's not really addressed. It's not really said that this is the reason why they're saying Beep Beep Richie. But, I mean, what do they do in television whenever they need to block out bad language? Beep. So there's that anyway. Then you've got good little dependable Eddie. Eddie was probably, if not my favorite, at least my top two favorite characters. Because that poor kid, him and Mike both were probably my favorite characters in the book. Simply because Mike would be a scriblarian. If you don't know what a scriblarian is, that is a beautiful word. You should look it up. But Eddie has his own little problems that he has to deal with all the way through the book. In between marrying his mom, which some people do, and realizing it, which a lot of people don't. Then you have Stan. Stan was part comedy relief without trying to be comedy relief in the book, mainly because he fit into that portion of, in a group of friends, there's usually one that catches the jokes. And this was that kid that did it. So Stan, as an adult, what he ended up doing was he became an accountant, a very successful one. Mike's amateur historian work, where he was talking to some of the town elders, some of the people that were remembering things that had happened, the time periods that had happened, figuring out the dates, the time periods, when things would start, how it would start, and asking the questions and finding out who and why and where. That was really an enjoyable part of the book for me because it gave more depth to just how long the creature had been there, how long had that thing that could almost be considered a demigod had been there. He wrote down everything and was starting to make a history of stuff because he knew they were all going to eventually forget. And one of the saddest parts for me, for Mike, was towards the end of the book, whenever he realized and saw for his own eyes that now that things had been concluded, that the ink was starting to fade. It was going away. So he would eventually forget his friends. To the dilemma about, is it hate speech if a author is using it for characters? No, I don't think it is. Do I like it? No. But it is something that adds to the book. And in this way, the way that Stephen King did it, it did add to the book. It didn't take away from it. It gave it angst. It gave it flavor from the bullies of they are bad, and there's levels of bullyism. And the way that Stephen King did it with these guys, they were top notch. They were what I was used to whenever I was a kid that you just don't see anymore. There is somebody being a absolute turd, then there's somebody that's really got a chip on their shoulder, and then there's that absolute person. And those kids were definitely the bad people, the bad apples. But the good thing about those people was the bad kid, his father, they were movers in the story. Because without that just blind rage hate, there was no way that Mike, Bill, and Bev and everybody would have been brought together, because he wouldn't have been pushed into the Barrens where Ben and the group up to that point had been building and playing and everything. But the main point that I have here is the way that all the hate was just dispelled at that moment, because of the way that Big Bill and Mike and Ben all interacted. So that was a great way for everything to be dispelled, that it wasn't about color, that it wasn't about skin. And from that point forward, even though Henry was still being a little crap, you could clearly see that he wasn't having any more power over it. And that was really kind of the lesson in it, is as they discovered who they thought they were, that they started to master the things that they feared. And as they mastered the things that they feared, Pennywise / it started to lose its ability to scare and cause fear in them, and then subsequently ended up starting to fear them instead, which was a great little turning point. The sex scene. The sex scene happens at the end of the book, or in the middle of the book, depending upon how you want to look at it. It's technically wrote at the end of the book, but it's the middle of the storyline because of those two storylines that are depending upon each other to happen. But it's actually wrote at the end of the book. Read it, you'll find out what I'm talking about. Towards the end, Beverly is starting to rediscover some of the things that she had forgot. And she remembers that she ended up having sex pretty much with everybody. And that was her gift to the group. In this story, what it involved with was they had to lose their innocence in order to find the way out. And a lot of the times, there's a grain of truth in that statement. That was the way that they were able to get out of the sewers the first time. Now, it wasn't like an adult orgy or anything like that. It wasn't really comfortable to read. I did have an issue with it, but I always have one philosophy whenever I read somebody else's books, and that is, even if I don't agree with it, even if I don't like what I'm reading, I read it through to the end. Sometimes you learn something. I learned that very particularly, I don't like kids having sex. Not comfortable with it. Just doesn't seem natural to me. Now, moving on to some of the fun stuff, the imagery. My God. One of my favorite parts of the book had to do with, the turtle. It itself, whenever Bill is talking to the turtle, and the turtle's like, dude, I ain't getting into this. I just kind of hang out. And, sorry about it, but I kind of had a stomach ache whenever I puked your world out. I was like, that turtle, it died. Puked in its own shell. Ha ha ha. But the way that those things were described, not so much in a telling me, like the turtle shell is green, or it is a ethereal turtle that you can see through with purple shades of blue interlaced with sprinklings of stars. it was all left to my mind. And that, well done. He did give descriptions on things that needed descriptions, such as the wall. He mentioned it earlier with foreshadowing of biting the tongue and this, that, and the other. I was like, he wouldn't really do that, would he? And of course they did. The town just absolutely coming apart. I mean, really coming apart. Silos falling in the air. Main Street falling in. It's just incredible. I don't really want to put a rating out on this because I did on the other book reviews, and anything that I do for the Philip DeFranco Elite Book Club thing, I will be putting ratings on. On this book, if I were to rate it from low to high on this is a book that somebody should read if they like horror, if they like sci-fi, I would definitely rate this incredibly high on the you should probably read this. Go for it. You won't be disappointed. It will take a little while for the book to get going, but once it gets going, you will like where it heads. As always, thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Feel free to leave a comment in the section below. I'll do my best to reach out to everybody that does. And beyond that, have a great day.